So I just got finished watching the next to last episode of Hawkeye, and maybe some big stuff happened in there. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your thoughts on episode 5 as well as 4 of Hawkeye. This is a spoiler review, so feel free to spoil away down below in the comments. No need for a spoiler warning. Likewise, if you haven't watched the episode yet, you have been warned. This is a spoiler review. Also, a ton of you commented, DM'd me, tweeted at me, where's your episode 4 review of Hawkeye? Simple answer, I took the beginning of last week off from video production. October, November were crazy busy for the channel. Stuff was coming out, and it just led to me having a bunch of gigantic rankings. Bond ranking, Halloween, a 31 on 31. All 60 Disney movies were ranked. Just a very busy month, and great for the channel. But then this next month is also going to be crazy busy. Spider-Man's coming out, Matrix, Kingsman, end of the year list, Cobra Kai, Witcher. And so I just needed a little window of time to get away from video creation, rest, do some writing in advance, and it meant I couldn't cover some stuff I wanted to cover. I really debated, like, all right, I can make one of these videos really easy. I just had to take a break. That's the full reason right there. With that said, let's get started with my general thoughts on the last 2 episodes of Hawkeye. Short version of it, I am all in on this show. I said it in my early reviews, this is exactly my kind of thing, and that remains to be the case. And the further you go along, the more you really buy into the Clint-Kate relationship. There's so many great little moments of the two of them spending time together. You really buy into how much they care about one another, and they have a great dynamic between the two of them. And so oh, hey, Karis. I was kind of shooting a video right now. Did you have a question?
I want to ask a trick or treat.
You want the trick or treat episode of Little Einstein? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll be right back. All right, now that we got that problem resolved, back to Clint and Kate, and I just enjoy spending time with these characters. And then my biggest issue kind of with this season early on was it just didn't feel like there were enough stakes and urgency. And as you kind of reached the 4th episode, it became very clear that's not what this is headed towards. It very much is intended to be at the level that they set at the beginning, and any expectations of something bigger is coming externally. You have thoughts of what an MCU film will be, you have thoughts of what an MCU series will be that they build to this, and from the very beginning, this show made it clear that's not what this really is going to be. And so if you keep waiting for it to do that, it's not going to, but once you realize what it is, I think it works very well for me. In which case, my biggest complaint about the show, now that we only have 1 episode left, is that we only have 1 episode left. It is the length. It's a show that I feel could have been much longer. I think even on a budget level. I don't know about scheduling with Jeremy Renner and his kind of statements he's made about what he was willing to do and not willing to do. But on a budget level, it's not like this is a bunch of expensive spectacle, in which case adding extra episodes I would think would be very doable. And so I would just, as I said before, love to spend more time with these characters. But the characters they're bringing in, the actors that they cast, pretty much everything that they're doing with this, right up my alley, thoroughly enjoying all of it. So from there, let's kind of dive into more specific spoilers about the episodes. So this is an episode 5 review, but to just kind of quickly give some thoughts on last week, it kicked off with it revealing that Jack was the one holding a sword to Hawkeye's neck, which was pretty obvious, not terribly surprising. That's where things were headed. And so they end up having like this get-together meal with Clint and Kate, and then her mom, future stepdad. And I've said it before, like this actor playing Jack, I just love this guy. His overly smiley, persona, and the way they keep writing him as every time he's called on something, he just totally owns it and like articulates the reason the person was suspicious. Every line that he does, just want more of this guy. Once again, to this whole point of the season's too short for me, and we only have one more episode, and I don't even know how they're gonna resolve that. I guess we'll get to that later, but it's just a ton of fun of seeing the interaction, this dynamic there. And then as Clint is leaving, the mom's like, pretty bluntly is like, you got your friends killed. A lot of people killed. You're not going to get my daughter killed. Like, ooh, she's getting pretty vicious with her treatment of Clint and the subtlety of these lines. Very passive aggressive. Not much subtlety while not being direct at the same time of what she's getting at, where she's going at emotionally with everything she's saying. So then they have their Christmas party in the middle of it. Just charming, just delightful little sequence of Clint and Kate spending time together, where she's like realizes, Christmas is about being with your family. So she goes and meets up with them and they just have fun. And you get that bond between the two of them. And then it kind of closes out with them going after Maya, trying to see what's going on, and then mysterious figure shows up. One other thing about the big reveals this season is that they're a lot of fun, but they're pretty easy to predict what they are if you've even the mildest of little research, and that is not a complaint when I say that. Not a complaint. After WandaVision made us go, I wonder if it's this, and then it wasn't. This show being like, is that going to be? And then it actually is. I am totally fine with the obvious answer I'm excited for being the answer that they give me. But so they'd shown in the trailer this mysterious figure that if you kind of look up Yelena's comic book appearance, kind of knew where that was headed. So that mask comes off and it was Yelena. And even if you didn't know from that little shot in the trailer that teasers for everything that was the comic accurate costume, she Florence Pugh's in the credits for the show. It wasn't like a secret she was going to be in this. The post-credit scene for Black Widow sends Yelena after Clint. I mean, it's not. There wasn't terribly surprising that she was going to show up at some point during this show and be going after Clint. That they told us that was going to happen. And given the lineup of future MCU projects, if they're going to resolve that post-credits, or if you're going to put that post-credit scene in there of like, oh, this popular new character that's a lot of fun, I wonder if we'll get to see any more of her. And then there's a post-credit scene of someone saying, go get Clint Barton. And this happens months before we get the Clint Barton show. I wonder if she's going to be on this show. I wonder if they're going to fight. Of course, that's going to happen. And so that's the big reveal. And while it wasn't terribly surprising at all to anyone that, if you pause to think about it, if you're just kind of a casual viewer like my wife, she was like, oh, that's cool. But, if you're someone like me, someone you in the comments, probably were pretty sure where that was headed. Doesn't change the fact that it was like fun to see her. It was a nice reveal, pulling things together. Not every answer needs to be to outsmart me. Not every answer needs to subvert my expectations. Sometimes when you just deliver on my expectations, I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's last week's episode. That brings us to this week's episode. And it starts off with a little Yelena prologue in 2018 of her continuing where she left off at the end of Black Widow, but before the post-credit scene. So when she's still on her mission to free the Black Widows, and you see her kind of meet up with someone and get in a fight, spray her in the face, and it turns out the lady's not brainwashed. So that was a nice little touch of like, and then as soon as the person realizes what they're doing, they're like, cool, and they're just chilling afterwards. It's just a nice little touch as a kind of a brief window. We're probably not going to get the adventures of Yelena freeing Black Widows. And so just getting that little scene that's what she was up to is just a nice follow-up, fleshing some stuff out. So she goes to the bathroom, and what was cool about what takes place is, despite having us seen quite a bit of blip, post-blip, this time we just follow her straight through it. She goes into a bathroom, and I was pretty sure that's where this was headed. And I guess that was a question: did she get blipped or not? What exactly? What kind of? How did some of this go down? And so she walks into the bathroom and like powders, dusts up, and immediately comes back, and the room changes. And it's just like just interesting to see that. It's like we're still here. We are like 3 years later, or over 3 years after Infinity War, almost 3 years since Endgame. It's still kind of getting a idea of how that affected people in different ways and how that played out exactly. So you see that happen. She walks out, and she's like, "I need to go find my sister." One criticism right here real quick I want to talk about is, so she's talking to the lady at the house, and she walks out, and the lady now has a husband and kid, and they start talking. And one of the things, it seems like they haven't done a great job of writing these scenes holistically. So Yelena's freaking out, like, how did I just jump 5 years into the future? This lady should be freaking out, though, because if you're back, what does that mean for everyone else? Everybody lost half the people they know. She lost half the people she knows. One of them came back, and she's like, "Oh, pretty wild. You came back. That's cool." But she should be freaking out too, trying to fit. Like, she just lived through 5 years of the apocalypse. And are we now on the opposite side of the apocalypse? And that has all sorts of so she should, like, the response from her. And I understand that they want to show Yelena's response, so they don't want to overcook the other person. But that, like, they write her in a way that it's like, oh, cool. It's been 5 years. Like, all of us have PTSD because we lost half the people we know. The infrastructure collapsed, but it's actually been pretty good for me. I got a husband and a kid. There's like a missing gap in the lady's response. Anyway, I'm lingering too long on this lady. This just bugs me when you see an interaction. It's like, wait, shouldn't you be freaking out right now? So anyway, kind of continue on, and I don't want to walk through the whole episode, but essentially Kate goes home, and, she kind of has like this heart-to-heart with her mother. And the show isn't pretty heavy on the foreshadowing with everything it does. Like, if you left that first episode and were like, her mom's great, totally normal, not suspicious at all, that's probably not where this is headed. Seem to pretty clearly indicate that her mom is probably up to no good with everything that's going on the show. And so your mom's comforting her, and anyone hurt you and stuff like that. And she just kind of sends her back to her apartment to grab her things to come back home. Shows up, and Yelena's there. And Yelena at the end of the last episode was Black Widow assassin mode. And we only saw her fighting. Really, probably we saw her stunt double in just one shot of her on a roof. So really what we got. So here, you really get the Yelena experience. And immediately it goes to the Yelena experience of her quirky, oddball personality, which is, in this context, the person they pair her up against is, in particular, a lot of fun. Because up to this point in time, Kate Bishop has been the quirky, lighthearted character that's kind of joking around in being too lighthearted in scenes that potentially are probably supposed to be heavier. Suddenly, Kate is the one, like, thrown off by why on earth is this Black Widow assassin in my apartment making macaroni, complimenting me on the quality of my boxed macaroni, and not liking the fact that I only have one fork. She's the one that's like suddenly like, what? Why is this person being so lighthearted in this moment? It's just a lot of fun to kind of get the two of them kind of the shift in dynamics, more of Yelena's oddball personality. Now, one thing I've been concerned about since that post-credit scene, and somewhat still need to see how exactly this is going to play out, but to us as the audience that was there and watched what happened with Natasha and Clint, have watched their relationship throughout all these films, We've seen Clint so intensely, and then the moment where Natasha died, we know exactly what Clint was doing in that moment. We know how hard he was trying to die, sacrifice himself, not her. We know all of that. And so when we saw the post-credit scene on Black Widow, Elaine is like, Clint Barton is the person that killed your sister. Go get him. When we saw that, it rang hollow for us. It felt like, oh, that's going to be interesting, but you can resolve that with a conversation. Because on our part as the audience, none of us in the audience were thinking Clint's responsible for her death. He did this. No one in the audience thought that. All of us went, maybe he should have died. I preferred he would have died. Maybe you thought that. But you didn't think all the people responsible, Clint is the reason that Natasha is dead. I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth in that moment. Because he was the person desperately trying to keep her alive in that moment. So you have this conversation, and the writers probably figured that out. And so the focus has to shift to something else. So the focus is now on the fact that Clint has done terrible things. Which once again, I think rings hollow coming from a Black Widow assassin who's been hired to kill him. Someone that also has killed a lot of people and is still kind of in that line of work. So it's kind of a bit of it like, it rings a bit weird of like, they're trying to force a conflict that doesn't feel like it makes sense. And they're using it for the plot of this series, which is entirely built around showing the contrast between Hawkeye and Ronin and Clint. And Clint's perception of himself is, I'm a killer. I just happen to be on the right side for a lot of it. And I also did a lot of really bad stuff. He's very much processing, owning the consequences of who he was. And so then they're using Elaine as one more voice to that of like, this guy just has a line of bodies behind him. But there's also a line of bodies behind her. And the degree to which you say, well, she was brainwashed okay, she's still being hired to kill people as she's on a mission to kill someone right now. That is a strange messenger to say, Clint, you've got a line of bodies behind you, and that's not cool. So I'm hoping that they come up with a good way to like make that ring less hollow. Because I love that she's on this show. It's fun to see the conflict. It rings a bit hollow for me. So, Elena's like, hey, I'm not going to hurt you. Just don't get in my way. And we see kind of Clint processing through everything. They mentioned the new Statue of Liberty. And I don't think that we've seen that yet. I don't think we've seen whatever happened to the Statue of Liberty, except in the trailers for No Way Home. I think I said this earlier. I see No Way Home tonight, so I don't know exactly what that means, but I've seen the trailers for No Way Home. In the trailers, you see there's stuff going on at the Statue of Liberty and it's being changed. And so then I guess that clearly makes the timeline that means the timeline of this show is that it's after No Way Home. It's kind of fun that they're dropping at the same time. And I'm hoping that maybe some other faces show up tonight in the movie from Marvel Netflix. But they reference in here the new Statue of Liberty. I thought that was kind of a little detail. I guess that was in the Yelena Case conversation. But so then I'm getting out of order. Sorry. Had too much caffeine. I didn't get enough sleep last night, and now I'm hopped up on caffeine, talking very quickly. But so we see Clint go and kind of trying to process everything that's happening. He is talking at the memorial for the Battle of New York in 2012, talking to Natasha, and you see him kind of like say he's trying to live up to the sacrifice that she paid for him to earn that, to live up to it. And then he's like, I got to do one more thing. And you see him put the hood on, going into Ronin mode, basically tells Maya where they're going to meet up. And so Maya kind of setting a trap for him to take him out. And pretty quickly, pretty easily, Clint takes out all the side people, fights Maya, defeats her. And you can tell he's clearly not trying to kill her. That's the whole point. He's not trying to kill any of them. He's trying to finally resolved this through a conversation. Gets her down. He says, I'm a tool just like you. Your boss leaked me the information of where your father was at. Your boss wanted your father dead. So she doesn't believe this. She thinks he's just lying. But at the same time, it's tickling something in her brain of like, wait, what? What is he saying? And she's in this moment of like, wait, why aren't you, if you're Ronin, why didn't you kill all my people this time? What's changed? Like you can see the gears grinding. She's been on this path of rage and anger for years to kill this person. Now the person's in front of her. He has defeated her, and he's not the person that she had envisioned. You're a monster. You just want to kill people, and you killed my father. But that's not the person that's in front of her in this moment. And so you can see her trying to process that, and then she gets the upper hand. Kate shows up just in time to make it so they can escape. So Clint and Kate kind of are escaping, and you're trying to process exactly kind of what's going on. Maya follows up with her number one guy that's been trying to talk her out of this revenge mission the whole time. And so she asks him like, hey, why weren't you there the night my father was killed? And he's like, I don't know, what do you mean? And like, where are you going with all of this? And you can see she's putting it together that, wait, Clint was telling the truth that the boss man, who we'll talk about in just a second, he did make this happen. That the guy that killed my father was that's not who really was behind this. That was someone manipulated the situation to happen. See those gears turning. Then they show us this shot of Yelena following Kate's mom. And that's where I started going, I bet our final reveal is Kate's mom with a familiar face. And then we get Kate and Clint sitting there talking, processing their last interactions. She gets a text from Yelena. I guess they're text buddies now. That's cute. I like that. That's so human that they're buddies now. And she's like, I found out who hired me. And because Kate had there's a lot of those in this whole thing of people like someone on a singular mission to stop the person that did the thing, and then they feed information back that makes the person second guess themselves. So Yelena gets one of those too, tracks her down. It's like, I found out the person who's responsible, sends over a picture. You get a blurry picture. Kate's mom, clearly Kingpin, not so clearly if it's Vincent D'Onofrio until the credits roll, and it's like that is definitely Vincent D'Onofrio, Marvel Netflix Kingpin, in an MCU Studios project. And if you are unaware, Daredevil is maybe my favorite TV show of the last decade. I loved Daredevil. Everything about it, all 3 seasons. And yeah, season 2 got a little wacky on the back half, but in general, I just loved that show. Loved the casting of that show. And Vincent D'Onofrio was just fantastic in the role. Charlie Cox was fantastic. And one of the fun, interesting little, fun details about it, but since the show's canceled, which was heartbreaking for me, and I did a video like ranting at rage when that happened. Like, what, are we not going to see these guys again? And then like on Twitter, they're all like best friends, or they're very supportive of one another. And it's always nice when you have a TV show and someone like Vincent D'Onofrio that's been acting in Hollywood for 35 years and has all these iconic classic roles. And he's on Twitter just supporting all of his supporting cast on there and talking about how he'd love to do the role again. And when they seem to be as fond of the project and want to do more of the project just as much as we want it, there's something about that that's just thoroughly enjoyable. Just adds that extra layer of like, they're like us. They like this too. But with the Disney acquisition, the show's canceled. Didn't know if we'd ever see them in the MCU proper, Marvel Studios MCU, because Marvel Netflix was always like cousin-y, distant cousin that would reference some MCU events, but the MCU proper events would never reference Marvel Netflix. And so it was always in that category of things. And so I just took it as that's not really in the same universe. Not really. And then today happens. We don't know exactly what it means. We don't know exactly how it ties things together. If it's the same actor playing the part, but in fact it's a different version because of multiverse, and doesn't mean that everything that happened in those shows actually happened in the MCU. Don't know exactly what it means. but he's there. And this actor that was so great in this role is now that part again in our MCU. That is cool. That is a win for the fans. And wherever this is going, however it's going to play out, I'm excited to see what it means, especially because it means several of those other people could be showing up in meaningful ways. And I would love, love, love to see that. So some things about it have me a little bit concerned. We only have one episode left. One episode to resolve kind of the whole plot of the season. And you can see how kind of the Maya thing is coming down. They've had their final showdown. Maya's probably going to piece it together. And so she'll team up with Kate and Clint in the finale. But like, what on earth is going on with Jack? Because we've now had 5 episodes straight of him being clearly super suspicious. And whenever he's called out on something, he's like, yeah, I mean, I was being suspicious, so I get why you thought I was being suspicious. But is he just a big, gigantic red herring, but he's also like super chill about the fact that everyone thinks he's up to no good? So is he really going to play into this, or is he just meant to be kind of this, what exactly is it? Was he meant to distract us from the Kingpin stuff? Which anyone that knows Echo's backstory knows that Kingpin was probably going to be there. And they show his hand, and it's pretty clear that we're building towards Kingpin, not towards Jack. So where's all that heading? And next episode, almost certainly we're going to have Vincent D'Onofrio not just in a blurry picture, but actually, ta-da, there in the episode. And so you want to spend a lot of time with him. But we also have to resolve all the plot. And so it just seems like we've got to resolve this Yelena stuff of like her. Can't imagine she's going to kill Clint, but how are they going to like, you want to spend a lot of time with the two of them talking through things. We got to have Kate confront her mother about the fact that she's super sus. That's a lot for one episode. That is a lot of loose ends that need to be tied off. And if we, open up next week's episode and it's an hour and 15 minutes, I'll be like, cool, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's good. But it's not. It's going to be 50 minutes. It's going to be like 5 minutes longer than this week's episode. That has me pretty nervous. And that's kind of what they did with WandaVision, of all these kind of mini plot lines. And then you get to the last episode and it's like, and then everybody fights. And in the middle of the fight, they have a conversation that ties off each loose end, and ta-da, we'll tease the next thing. Like, whoa, that really kind of rushed. You kind of took your time for the first 2/3 of this, and then you really rushed the end. And I hope that's not the way this thing plays out. I hope it's paced a little bit better than that. But that's really my big issue with the show, is that I want more episodes. I want it to be longer, and I'm concerned it might rush the conclusion, as WandaVision did as well. But just in general, thoroughly enjoying the show, love what they're doing with it, and can't wait to see this finale that I'm fingers crossed isn't too cluttered and rushed as we get to the end of it. But certainly this is of these Disney Plus Marvel shows, certainly one of my favorite ones. We'll see how the finale goes to see where exactly it lands, whereas some of them didn't stick the landing so well or had issues. This one, if it sticks the landing, it's going to be a nice little spot amongst them. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much.